Hello guys, and welcome to my build video on the Torug's Pact Magicka Nightblade. This is a Resto dual wield melee Magicka Nightblade build that uses Torug's Pact to give our dual wield weapons powerful shock damage properties, as well as using Torug's Pact to make our restoration staff buff all of our other damage very, very high as well. So let's jump into the build, guys. Let's get right into it. So, as we can see at the beginning here, we have got a pretty decent 41k Magicka pool. Not bad at all. I'm going to buff up real fast for you guys so you can see. We've coming in at 2,800 spell damage when we cloak up, 3,050 spell damage, 2k recovery buffed, which is absolutely incredible, low stamina recovery and low max stam pools. This is a very kitey and stealthy Magicka Nightblade build, so you don't need a lot of stamina for it. You should be trying your best to avoid getting attacked anyway, so there you have it. And then 60% spell crit. Something to keep in mind is that I do have a precise weapon on that I should be running 2 infused weapons, so my spell crit on this build is going to come in more around 55%. So there you have it. Nice amount of crit resist as well. We've got the Atronach as our Mundus to increase our Magicka recovery. Sustain, of course, very important, especially for PvP. And we've got Witchmother's Brew as our food, giving us Magicka recovery, max Magicka, and max health. For the potions that I'm using, guys, I'm just using Alliance Spell Droughts at the moment, but you need to use a potion that gives you access to Major Sorcery. That's the only buff we're missing for this build. Okay, so let's take a look at the gear we're wearing and talk about why we're wearing it. So let's start with the set in question, Torug's Pact. We've got a 5-piece Torug's Pact on right now. As you guys know, in the Porns of the Reach patch, quite a few changes have been made to weapon traits, etc. So let's take a look at our Torug's Pact. Let's take a look at this gold sword. We've got an infused Torug's Pact sword that comes in at 6,423 shock damage for the enchant. Absolutely incredible. Now, our offhand sword here is our other 5-piece set, which is spinners, and it is precise. This should be an infused set. You shouldn't use precise for this build. You should be using infused, because then you'll have 2 times as many enchants going off, and it's just going to result in more shock damage. And the reason we've gone with shock enchants, I know I'm going to get that question, why not use Oblivions, Jack? Well, if you ask that question in my comment section, I want you to rewatch this video because I mention it right here. Shock damage has a very good chance of applying minor vulnerability to your opponent, which increases the amount of damage that they take by 8%. If we have 2 shock damage glyphs on with Torug's Pact, they have a cooldown of around 1 second before they will re-proc. That means that almost every light attack that we throw is going to have this shock damage with it, which is absolutely incredible. It adds a powerful light attack to this build. And of course, that light attack is going to afflict your opponent with minor vulnerability quite often, resulting in them taking 8% bonus damage. So there you see why we went with shock, just to increase all of our outgoing damage by a lot against that single target. Now, on our Resto staff bar, we also have our Torug's Pact as well, but we have a different enchant on here. Increase our weapon and spell damage by 587 for 5 seconds. This is a really powerful, really powerful enchant to be running on my off bar. This is base like 600 spell damage that it's going to give me. After math has been included into this, this is around 800 bonus spell damage for my build, and this is of course on a 1-second cooldown. So as long as I bust my Resto staff out every 5 seconds, I'm going to have this massive amount of damage boost on me as well. So for the gear that I have in Torug's here, you can see that it is in my gear and then my weapons. The spinners is my belt here, and then I've got some spinners jewelry as well, all enchanted, of course, with spell damage. And then finally, we've got 1-piece Slimecraw and 1-piece Ice Heart on. And both of these are going to offer us spell critical. Slimecraw is also going to give us some weapon crit, but that is not the focus of this build. So the reason that I've gone with this is because your enchants actually can crit for the Torug's Pact. So your shock damage enchants have a chance of critting. They're not like other proc sets that don't allow you to crit them. So this is just going to buff the damage that our enchants do, as well as buffing all of our other outgoing damage and healing by increasing our crit chance. And that's why I've gone with the 2 times crit bonus in our helm and shoulder slots. As for the traits on the gear, guys, I would recommend 3 infused on your big pieces and then 4 impenetrable on your middle pieces. Now, I don't have those traits. I have 2 divines here and divines on the helm. that I shouldn't have. This is just because I'm on the PTS and I'm just using whatever gear I could get my hands on here to put this build together. So ideally 4 impenetrable and 3 infused. As for the enchants that you use, I'd recommend going with maximum Magicka, but it's really up to you. If you want to use tri-stats for a little bit more stamina and health, you totally can. A lot of the damage on this build comes from your spell damage and comes from your enchants on your weapons, as well as your enchant buffs off your restoration staff. So having a huge max Magicka pool is not a huge necessity for this build. So going tri-stat glyphs is always a great option. Alright guys, so let's take a look at the skills we're using on this build. Our first ability here is Concealed Weapon. This is going to be our spammable attack. It's also going to stun if we hit an enemy from stealth with it. Of course, while having it slotted, it's also going to give us a 25% bonus to our movement speed. The next ability we're using is Lotus Fan. This is going to be our gap closer. Also gives a little bit of a dot and also functions as a snare on your target as well. Then we have Inner Light. Inner Light's great because it's going to give us a 5% max Magicka bonus, 2% more for being a Mage's Guild skill, and it's also going to give us Major Prophecy on our dual wield bar, increasing our crit rating by another 10%. It's also going to be access to stealth detection for this build, which is great because if you've played Nightblade in PvP before, you'll know that stealth detection is invaluable for fighting other Nightblades. And then we've got Siphoning attacks. This is here for the sustain, and as well, this is a siphoning skill, so it's going to give us an 8% Magicka bonus on our dual wield bar too. And then our Shadowy Disguise. This is our access to stealth. I went with Shadowy Disguise so I can deal huge guaranteed crits out of stealth. Now, we do have quite a high crit rate on this build, sitting at around 55% if I had all the right stuff on. So it's not bad. Shadowy Disguise is still a great choice, ensuring that crit out of stealth, especially if you want to use Concealed Weapon to stun. However, you can always go with the other Morph of Cloak that gives you 8% reduced incoming damage. Still a very viable option as well. And then for the ultimate, I've gone with Soul Harvest. Now, I picked Soul Harvest because it's a cheap ultimate that deals a lot of single target damage. It's also going to restore ultimate when I get kills if I have this slotted, and due to my dual wield bar being my offense bar, I will get probably all my kills on the dual wield bar, resulting in 10 extra ultimate per kill. It also afflicts the opponent with Major Defile, which is pretty dope, and it gives you 20% bonus damage against your target for 6 seconds as well. So very powerful ultimate with a very high uptime on the Magicka Nightblade, especially if we're getting a lot of kills. And then we have our Resto bar, and our Resto bar is our healing and kind of mobility and support bar. So we have Shadow Image as our first skill here. I've played a lot of Magicka Nightblade, and in my experience playing it, I can tell you guys that Shade is very valuable. Magicka Nightblade kind of suffers from Stamina Nightblade in the fact that they're just not as roly-poly as the Stamina Nightblade. So Shade comes in really handy for helping you reposition yourself very quickly in a fight. You set your Shade down, teleport back, and then stealth up and set a new Shade. And it leads to a great way to play your Magicka Nightblade. It helps you out of a lot of really tight situations. The next ability we have is Refreshing Path. Now, this is just as a bit of a ground damage AoE/heal, which is great. It's also going to give you a little bit of access to stealth detection because you can set down this field and anyone who walks over it will get pulled out of stealth. And then on top of it, using this ability will give you Major Expedition. So we have access to Major Expedition outside of stealth on this build as well. The next ability we have is Healing Ward. This is our primary heal. You guys know how it works. Very powerful heal from our restoration staff, and it's going to be the mainstay heal of this build. And then we've got Merciless Resolve. This is going to give us access to Minor Berserk, increasing our damage done by 8%. This will also turn into Assassin's Will if we do 5 light attacks after using it before the duration of it is up, allowing us to shoot a very powerful projectile at a distance, dealing a lot of damage and reducing the opponent's movement speed by 40% as well. And then finally, guys, we have Efficient Purge. And I'm using Efficient Purge here because I don't like to get marked, and we're playing a Magicka Nightblade with a huge amount of stealth uptime and a big Magicka pool and lots of Magicka sustain. So I decided Efficient Purge was totally worth it for this build so I could help keep that stealth uptime up. On top of it, I really like Efficient Purge if I'm using Shade because you'll quite often get marked and then you got to shade out of the situation into a Purge and then stealth. So it comes in really handy for helping your Nightblade stay invisible. And then finally, the ultimate on this bar is Soul Tether. This is just an AoE kind of defensive ultimate. For the offensive ultimate, we'll most likely be using Soul Harvest most of the time. Soul Tether is more for like if we get jumped on top and we don't really have anything else to react to them with, we can pop a Soul Tether to help us stay alive and maybe reposition and get out of the situation. Okay, so let's do a quick rundown of the champion points too, guys. We're going to start in the tower tree. 23 Warlord, 2 Sprinter, because I like to break free, so we put a few points in there. The Lover, we've got 64 Arcanist, 32 Mooncalf, and 20 in Tenacity. 64 Arcanist, of course, focus on Magicka recovery. Mooncalf, we can't neglect our stam recovery too much, and the points are very front heavy, so we still get a lot of bonus for it. And then Tenacity is great because we are off-barring a Restoration Staff, so if we need to pull those Resto heavies, the Tenacity is going to help pull more resources out of them. And a few points in Healthy, just because I had some points left over. And then in the Shadow Tree, 61 Tumbling, 13 Shadow Ward, and 1 Befoul. Tumbling being the most important tree, or point, or star in this tree. 21% reduced cost of roll dodge. You're going to have to roll dodge in PvP. And then a bit for Shadow Ward, because blocking is also important in PvP. In the Apprentice tree, we've got 15 Blessed, 28 Elfborn, 65 Elemental, and 32 Spell Erosion. Big focus on Elemental Expert here because this will increase the damage that our enchants do. So it increases the tooltip damage of them. Of course, Spell Erosion is great too because that is going to increase the damage of our enchants and all of our attacks as well. And Elfborn is great too because our enchants can crit as well. So big focus on the Apprentice tree here, just playing that Elemental, Spell Erosion, Elfborn game. In the Atronach, I've only got 19 Staff Expert. This is just due to the fact that we're not doing too terribly much offensive work with our Restoration Staff. None in Physical Weapon Expert because these are enchants that do all the damage. And Master at Arms sitting at 21% because this is going to increase the damage of all of our direct damage attacks. So that's very handy. And then in the Ritual, we've got nothing because we don't need it. All right, so let's check that red tree out. 100 points in the Steed, 61 Ironclad, 31 in Resistant, and 10 in Spell Shield. Big focus on Ironclad here is a lot of incoming burst damage is going to be direct damage, so this is a great kind of resistance to incoming burst. Resistant is important this patch too because there's going to be a lot more focus on critical builds this patch just due to how critical damage or critical chance has been buffed. So Resistance is going to be very important because I think we're going to see a lot more crit builds in this patch. So definitely stack in that Resistant tree, especially if you're not using damage shields now. In the Lady, we've got 19 Hardy, 19 Elemental Defender. Now, these are great. It's going to give us a little bit of reduced incoming damage from both physical and magical attacks. 16 Thick-Skinned for those damage over time. We do have Cloaks, so we don't need to worry too terribly much about it. And then 10 in Light Armor Focus, just to give us a little bit more physical resistance as well. And then in our Lord tree, we've got 23 in Quick Recovery for a little bit more healing and 31 in Bastion to increase the damage of our healing ward just by a little bit. But as you can see, we're focused a lot more on reducing that incoming burst damage on this build than we are in healing ourselves. This is mostly a kitey build. It's not supposed to be tanky. You're not supposed to sit there and tank people out. You're supposed to kite around and burst people down one at a time. So that's definitely how we've built our defensive tree as well. Okay guys, so we have one short clip for you guys for this build today, as it is a quick build and we don't have a lot of commentary in it. Also, this is a PTS build, so this build on the live server isn't as good as it is on the PTS. On the live server, my enchants were hitting for around 9,000 on crit, whereas they were getting over 11k crits on the PTS, so a little bit stronger on the live server than it is on the PTS. Anyhow, as you can see, there's a bunch of yellow guys, and they decide to follow me into the tower, and here we go. We're going to start with a concealed weapon from stealth, light attack into soul harvest, light attack, concealed weapon dodge roll. Absolutely massive burst on that guy. This guy here, we hit him with the light attack into cloak, concealed weapon from the stealth, light attack, concealed weapon, light attack, concealed weapon. Look at that damage. So much burst damage from those enchants. And we do the same kind of deal here, but another Nightblade shows up and gets a huge gank off on him. This Nightblade here somehow hits me with the fear. I'm too far away. I get marked. I decide to just throw down the defenses against him. I throw down the field so he can't roll through it or stealth through it. I shade him to reduce his incoming damage, and then just channel a Resto heavy on him into a concealed weapon to bring him down. The other Nightblade, of course, beating on him too. Anyhow, we got one more guy that's going to show up. I'm going to hit him with a nice hard attack as well, but that's pretty much the end of the video. I really hope you guys enjoyed this build. If you have any questions or comments for me, please put them in the description. And as always, thank you guys for watching, and have a great day. Can't wait for this patch to hit the live server. I'm really excited for the future of Torug's pack build. So have a good one, guys. I hope you enjoyed.